In March of 2021, Buckingham Palace did something it almost never does. It publicly admitted there was a problem inside its own walls. The Duchess of Sussex, Meghan, had been accused of bullying palace staff. And instead of doing what the palace has done for 1,000 years, instead of pulling the shutters down and saying nothing, it announced an investigation. "We are clearly very concerned," the statement said. "The royal household will look into it." They hired an outside law firm. Staff came forward and gave evidence. The work was done. The report was completed. And then the palace made its decision about what that report found. You will never see it. Not the conclusions, not a summary, not one single line. The investigation that was launched to prove the palace takes complaints seriously ended as the one thing it was never supposed to become: a burial. And here's the twist I want you to sit with for the next 20 minutes, because it's the whole story. Hiding that report didn't protect anyone. It managed to damage every single person whose name was ever attached to it. The accusers, the institution, and yes, Meghan too. Now, before we go 1 inch further, I need to be dead clear about something, because this topic burns people alive in the comments. I am not here to tell you Meghan bullied anyone. I'm not here to tell you she didn't. I genuinely don't know. And neither do you. And neither does anyone watching this. Because the one document on earth that could answer it is locked in a drawer. The allegations are allegations. She has always denied them, and her side has always called them a smear. That's where the facts stop and the vault begins. This isn't a story about whether the bullying happened. It's a story about a family that ran the investigation, got the answer, and then decided the answer belonged to nobody. And there's one small detail about who actually paid for that investigation. One detail that quietly changes how you read everything the palace did next. Hold that thought. It's coming. Let's start with the two statements, because you don't need a leaked file to see the problem. You just need to read the palace's own words back to back. March 2021. The palace. "We are clearly very concerned about allegations. We do not tolerate bullying or harassment in the workplace." Strong stuff. That's an institution planting a flag. That's an institution saying out loud to the entire world, we take this seriously enough to bring in outside lawyers and dig. Then, wind forward to 2022. The findings are in. And the palace's position on those findings? They will remain confidential. To protect the privacy, it said, of the people who took part. Read those two things one after the other and really listen to them. In 2021, the message is, we are very concerned. We must look into this. In 2022, the message is, what we found is nobody's business. And here's the thing. Those two positions can't comfortably share a room. You cannot be publicly, urgently concerned about a set of allegations, launch a formal inquiry to the sound of trumpets, and then decide that the conclusions of that inquiry are private. Concern that produces silence isn't concern, it's containment. The palace set its own standard in the launch statement, and then the burial statement broke it. So now we've got a completed report nobody can read, and an institution that contradicted itself getting there, which drops us straight into the hardest question in this entire story. And I want you to actually answer it in your head, because this one is genuinely 50-50, and I mean that. There are two doors out of this room. Pick one. Door number 1. The report substantiated the claims. Say it found real bullying, real misconduct. If that's what's in the folder, then the palace has concealed the findings of a misconduct investigation, and it has left the staff who came forward, some of them reportedly waiting years to be heard, with no vindication and no official acknowledgement that anything happened to them at all. Their pain gets filed away in the dark. Now, door number 2. The report cleared her. Say it found the allegations didn't hold up. If that's what's in the folder, then the palace publicly branded a departing duchess a suspected bully in headlines that circled the entire planet, and then it hid the very document that would have cleared her name. It let the accusations stand and buried the exoneration. Look at those two doors. Really look. There is no version of what's in that folder that makes the palace look good. If it's door 1, they covered up misconduct. If it's door 2, they smeared a woman and then hid her defence. Guilty either way. And that right there is almost certainly why the folder is shut. So tell me, Honestly, down in the comments, which door do you believe? Was it buried because it proved the bullying, or buried because it cleared her? I already know this section is going to split straight down the middle, pro-Meghan on one side, anti-Meghan on the other, and that's exactly the point. Both sides lose when the answer is hidden. Pick your door and tell me why. Now let's talk about what this burial actually cost, because it's not abstract. Real people paid for it, and I want to itemize the bill. Start with the staffers. These weren't ghosts. These were named individuals reported in the press, people who worked inside those palace walls and chose to put their accounts on the record in a formal legal process. Whatever the truth of what they experienced, they went through the inquiry, and they came out the other side with nothing. No finding they could point to, no closure, no moment where the institution turned to them and said, "Here is what we concluded about what you told us." Silence. Then there's Meghan, and I want the pro-Meghan side of this audience to hear this clearly, because it cuts your way too. She is now permanently attached to an allegation she cannot disprove. Think about how cruel that is in its own way. If that report exonerates her, and it might, she can never wave it in the air because it's sealed in a palace drawer she has no key to. The one piece of paper that could end the whispers for good is the one piece of paper she's not allowed to have. An accusation with no verdict follows you forever. Then there's the institution's own credibility as an employer. Every future member of staff who ever considers making a complaint inside that household now has a precedent staring back at them. You can come forward, they'll investigate, and the findings will vanish. What does that teach the next person? What's the incentive to ever speak up again? And then there's the timing, which is almost too neat. The decision to keep the report confidential landed in the same stretch as the Platinum Jubilee, a summer of street parties and flypasts and national celebration, the whole country looking up at the balcony. Bury the bad news inside the party. Release nothing anyone would want to read while the entire press is busy photographing the fireworks. That's not a coincidence. That's the oldest move in the communications handbook. You don't hide a thing in a dark corner, you hide it in the brightest, loudest, most distracting room in the house. And they ran it in broad daylight, in front of everyone, and it worked. Okay, this is the moment I promised you at the very start. The detail about who paid. Let's open it. The investigation into Meghan was funded privately, not by the sovereign grant, not by the public money that funds the working monarchy, but privately. And that's not a rumour. The palace itself confirmed the funding didn't come from the taxpayer. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a footnote, an accounting note. Who cares which pot of money paid the lawyers? But sit with what it actually means, because it's the key that unlocks the whole thing. When something is paid for with public money, the public has a claim on it. There are mechanisms, freedom of information, parliamentary questions, the basic principle that if the taxpayer funded it, the taxpayer is owed some account of it. But structure the inquiry so that not one penny of public money touches it, and suddenly none of that applies. No public funds, no public accountability. The public paid nothing, so the public is owed nothing. Do you see what that is? That's not an accounting decision, that's an information decision. The choice to fund it privately meant the report could be sealed clean, with no legal lever anyone on the outside could pull to force it open. Think about the order of events for a second. Normally, you'd expect the burial to be a reaction. Findings come in, they're awkward, somebody panics and decides to hide them. But the private funding came first, before the lawyers were hired, before a single witness spoke, which means the ability to seal the whole thing wasn't a response to what the report said. It was baked in before anyone knew what it would say. The report wasn't just buried after the fact, it was built, from the very first invoice, to be buriable. The escape hatch was designed in before the first witness ever sat down, and that changes the colour of everything. Because you don't build an escape hatch for a room you're planning to walk out of the front door. Right, quick thing, because this is exactly the moment to say it. If you want the royal stories told like this, straight down the middle, both sides weighed, no fairy tales and no witch hunts, just do me one favour and hit subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel more than you'd think. That's it. That's the only time I'll ask. Now back to it, because we're not done. Because here's what you have to understand. This burial wasn't a one-off. It wasn't a panicked institution improvising under pressure. It was a reflex. A pattern this family has run for decades. And once you see the shape of it, you see it everywhere. The move is always the same. Commission a process, then control the output. Launch the official-looking thing, and make sure the official-looking thing ends in silence you can call procedure. This is the same institution that sealed Prince Philip's will in a private court hearing, closed to the public, with the contents locked away for years. The same institution that answered a 2-hour Oprah interview, an interview watched watched by tens of millions, with an accusation of racism inside the family at the centre of it, with a written statement of barely more than 50 words. Recollections may vary. The same institution that, going back to the Diana years and before, has quietly handled internally every crisis that ever threatened it. And here's the clever part, the part that makes it so effective. The palace, mostly, doesn't lie. Lying is dangerous. A lie can be caught, exposed, thrown back at you. What it does instead is subtler and far stronger. It creates official processes that end in nothing. A sealed hearing, a confidential report, an internal review, so that the silence at the end doesn't look like a choice. It looks like process. It looks like procedure. That's the flaw. And it's a flaw dressed up as good governance. Now let's look at the excuse itself, because they gave one, and it deserves to be tested. The reason offered for sealing the report was that confidentiality protects the privacy of all involved. Lovely phrase. Protects everyone. Let's actually hold it up against the people it claims to be protecting. The staff who came forward. Reporting suggests several of them wanted to be heard. That's why you make a complaint. You want it acknowledged. Sealing the outcome doesn't protect them. It silences the very thing they went through the process to say. So it's probably not for them. And Meghan? Her camp called the original story a calculated smear from day one. If that report clears her, her side would presumably want it published tomorrow, shouted from the rooftops. Vindication in black and white. So it's probably not for her either. So walk it through with me. If it's not really protecting the accusers, and it's not really protecting the accused, then who exactly is served by total silence? There's only one party left in the room, the institution itself. Protecting the privacy of everyone involved turns out to be a beautiful piece of language for protecting precisely one entity, the one that gets to decide what stays sealed. When someone tells you they're protecting everyone, and everyone else is asking for the opposite, they're protecting themselves. And that brings us to the heart of the whole thing, the real moral. And I'm going to say it plainly. This is the family whose most famous line in living memory became, "Recollections may vary." 4 words that essentially mean your version, our version, who's to say. It's the institutional shrug turned into policy. And then, think about this. For once, they actually held a real investigation, an actual formal process, with lawyers and evidence, capable of settling whose recollection was right. A rare, genuine chance to replace "recollections may vary" with a fact. And what did they do with that fact? They locked it in a vault. That's the hypocrisy, and it goes deeper than one duchess or one report. This is an institution that doesn't actually fear lies. Lies can be spun, managed, waited out. What it fears is a verified answer. Because a monarchy built on mystique, on distance, on the idea that some things are simply above the rest of us, that institution cannot survive developing a habit of proof. Proof is the one thing it can't control. So when proof finally landed in its hands, it did the only thing it knows how to do. It made the proof disappear. So who's actually left defending this? Let's walk the room, because the answer tells you everything. Meghan's camp isn't defending the burial. They call the original allegations a smear, and would, by their own logic, want a clearing published. The accusers' side isn't defending it either. Through sympathetic journalists, their frustration came through loud and clear. Some reportedly saw the sealing as a betrayal of people who'd finally worked up the courage to speak. And then the strangest group of all, the royal correspondents. The palace's most reliable friends in the press. The people who, on almost any other day, carry the palace's water. Even they reported openly their frustration at being stonewalled on this. Stop and think about how rare that is. In a story this polarized, a story where you cannot get 2 people at the same dinner table to agree on a single fact about Meghan Markle, you have somehow produced a moment of total consensus. The accused wants clarity, the accusers want acknowledgement, and the palace's own tame press pack, the correspondents who spend their careers defending the house, want the thing released. Everyone, every faction. When the 2 sides of the most bitter dispute in modern royal history and the referees who normally back the house all want the exact same document opened, and exactly one party in the entire building says no, you don't need to have read the report to understand who its silence is really protecting. The one who says no is always the one with something to lose. And here's the part that can never be undone. The report exists. That's the piece that makes this unsolvable and permanent. It can't be unwritten. Somewhere in some secure palace file, the conclusions are sitting there right now, fully formed, waiting. And every every royal biographer for the next 50 years is going to spend a career chasing them, because things in this family don't stay buried forever. Staff NDAs expire, aides retire, and retired aides write memoirs. Diaries surface, documents leak, and in this family, historically, they always eventually leak. The vault isn't sealed for eternity, it's sealed for now. So here's where it leaves us. One day that folder opens. I'd bet the house on it. The only real question, the one nobody can answer yet, is whether it opens while the people named inside it are still alive to answer for what it says. Whether we get the truth while it can still change anything, or long after everyone involved is gone and it's just history. So I'll leave you with the question this whole story is really about, and I want your honest answer below. Forget for a second whether you think Meghan did it or didn't. I know that's the fight everyone wants to have, and you can have it in the replies. But answer me this one first. That report was buried. Was it buried to protect the staff who came forward, or to protect the story? Door 1 or door 2? Tell me, and tell me why. And if you want the next thread pulled, because this is far from the only time this family locked an answer in a vault and dared the world to find it, go and look at the sealed will. Prince Philip's last will and testament, closed in a private court, hidden from the public for decades on the say-so of a hearing nobody was allowed to watch. Same instinct, same silence, different draw. That one's waiting for you right here, and I'll see you in it.